Hey cousins, I'm Shemaya. It's like papaya, except it's not, and this is Plot Twist Please. Let's get into it.
You can't hurry love, they say. Well, how do you explain Love is Blind UK Season 1, Episode 10? Hi, welcome. Now, as I always do, I think that what I'm about to say in this episode does in fact apply to all people rather than just neurodivergent or autistic people. That being said, I do think most people on this floating rock here deeply desire companionship. Some of us even desire long-term partnership, either romantic or not. And because I believe that to be true, I do not think it's productive to tell women that they shouldn't want these things. Have you heard that before? That women should just not want romantic relationships in general and should just be comfortable being with ourselves? Have you heard that before? Have you? Oh, because I have. And let me just tell you, as someone who's been single her whole life, it does start to get a little bit tired. It starts to get a little bit wrinkly and old. Nothing wrong with getting wrinkly and old. Nothing wrong with that. But it just does start to lose its flavor. I also find it interesting that the same people who tell single people enjoy being single. Once you stop looking for a relationship, it'll come. Those are the same people who found their partners by actively seeking them. Like, okay, Brenda, thanks for the advice, but didn't you meet your fiance at a singles mixer? In public? Didn't you end up accidentally, by happenstance, running into him through a dating app that you had to intentionally download, make a profile curated for the type of person you wanted to attract, mind you, marketed toward a specific kind of life that you wanted to acquire, and swipe on, which eventually led to a date that you put on a cute little outfit for, and you even asked intentional questions while on that date? Let's be clear. Brenda is a literary device. I don't know a Brenda. Well, I do know a Brenda, but this isn't about her. Nevertheless, these people who say these things, in my opinion, respectfully, seem to be out of their depth a little. But it's not even these people's fault, I don't think. Because at an early age, we're taught, ever since our brains were at their mushiest, most malleable state, that romantic love should be wistful and unplanned. That it's not real unless it's unplanned. That planned romantic love isn't real love. And for a while, I was a Brenda. But the problem with this mentality is it can lead someone to believe that love doesn't take any effort and that it's supposed to be easy, and that the moment it crosses over into logical or planned territory, that's the same day it buys its first minivan or after it hits the 20-year mark, something like that. And I, a random bobblehead on the internet, have something to say about this. Yes, I do. But before my bobblehead starts yapping, this is Plot Twist Please. I am an autistic Black woman, and this is a place where autistic Black womaning is celebrated. Send this episode to someone, like this video, to show the algorithm that you like this video, and leave a comment below to say, hi, nice to meet you. So, back to the main course. And we know how I like to leave y'all here, well fed. I do think that it is unfair and wildly unrealistic to tell women to stop looking for love. Mind you, I don't think it's healthy to tell women that romantic love is the only thing they should pursue in life, but I'm getting a little dizzy from the pendulum swinging back and forth, right? Because I think in the past, romantic love for women was supposed to mean husband and babies. And if you didn't want a husband and babies, you were a bad woman. And now it's more like, if you want romantic love at all, you're a bad woman. So here's where this episode comes in. I'd argue that there are at least 4 things we should be telling people instead of stop looking for a relationship. Or rather, here are the things that I have been telling myself as a woman. And I guess these could go for really anybody, but I think there's a specific target toward women when we tell them, stop looking for relationships because you have to be powerful. And yeah, I get it. Like, listen, I get it. Because when all you want is a man, when all you aim for is a man, baby, you could be disappointed. I'm sorry. There just aren't. Women aren't set up for success when it comes to romantic love. We're not. We've been fed lies since we were young, so we're not set up for success. And men are not set up for success either because they've also been fed lies since they were young. Like, they've also been told that they're not supposed to show emotion and that they're not supposed to share how they feel and that they're not supposed to put all their eggs in one basket. Lies. All lies. So, because we've been fed lies as little babies, it's time to be adults and deconstruct those things, yeah? Because now that we're adults, we don't have to swallow everything we've been spoon-fed, right? So, to help in that deconstruction of the things we've been spoon-fed, I've come up with things that I've told myself as I pursue dating, and we're not about to get into details about that because we're just not about my specific dating life, but here are the things that I have found helpful for me. 1, practice deliberate unmasking and vulnerability and implement incremental trust building. So lots of big words, but just to break it down, I've always been under the impression that being vulnerable and completely opening up the floodgates were the same thing. I was under the impression that you could either be completely guarded or you could share everything with everyone and there was no in between. I mean, your girl invented the classic overshare. She's an oversharer. Speaking of, the term overshare is starting to lose its meaning lately. You telling someone about your dentist appointment on Tuesday is not an overshare. It's not an overshare. Take it from someone who knows. What happened to the trauma dumps to strangers in line at the DMV? What? This generation is getting weak, I tell you. Weak, I tell you. An overshare is not telling someone that you like Candy Crush. That's not even slightly embarrassing. I mean, come on. People need to grow a spine. If you told me you played Candy Crush for 8 hours straight after a really bad breakup from someone who you should have never wasted time with in the first place, then we can have a conversation. Tell me something completely off the wall. Tell me something that's going to make me shake in my boots. I want to be quivering from the femurs up. If I am not convulsing from sheer shock, punching the air and ripping my hair out, it's not an overshare. I can't be the only one feeling this way. The kiddos need to learn what an overshare is. When I start to question my mental state, when I start to question, like when I start to think to myself, wait, maybe the earth is flat, that is an overshare. That's what I need to experience. I need to be questioning everything. So what I'm trying to say is we need to step up our game, because if one of us is slacking, then the team suffers. So we got some catching up to do. But back to the source material, right? Even though this sends me into a tizzy, back to the material. What I mean to say is you can share without oversharing. Now, mind you, for a lot of autistic people, this is not an easy middle ground to find. Why, do you ask? Well, one of the cute, quirky parts of autism is not being able to tell what's socially acceptable. Of course, I was being sarcastic just then. Not being able to read social cues is not cute or quirky. It is actually really painful and can be really disabling in actual life. There are several moments of not understanding the joke, quote unquote, that are seeded into my brain forever, and it's fine. But you can understand by me telling you that, I'd assume, how it can be difficult for us to suss out what to share, who to share it with, and when. And with whom. Honestly, whenever I say the word whom, I feel like a founding father. Basically, a lot of autistic people, at a certain point, especially when they're my age, learn that there is a price of vulnerability. And that price can mean public embarrassment. It can mean reading the room wrong and someone never forgetting the way that you read the room wrong. And before you say, Shamaya, that's not an autistic problem, that's an everyone problem, I'm going to have to stop you right there. Autistic people, because we can't tell when too much to reveal is too much, can easily find ourselves in dangerous situations when it comes to partnership. And we often do. It just is a higher risk for us when it comes to pursuing long-term romantic relationships because of the intimacy of romantic relationships and because of the potential people who can prey on us not knowing when we're revealing too much about ourselves too early. Because if you reveal too early on in the dating process that you are like that you've been tricked in the past and that it's easy for you to get tricked, the absolute wrong people can latch onto you. It's giving crunchy, bad, not fun time, potentially long-term damaging time. So as much as I say jokingly, bring back oversharing, I, on a more serious note, think autistic people specifically need to be really mindful of when we're oversharing in the dating process. I used to think that being mindful in dating meant waiting for the other person to be vulnerable before you yourself are vulnerable, on the other side of the spectrum, on the other side of the sharing spectrum, right? But as a woman who dates men, I know that's not very realistic. Now, on the other hand, in terms of not sharing enough, I used to think that being mindful as a woman meant waiting for the other person to be vulnerable before you're vulnerable. But as a woman who dates men, I also have to be realistic. Do I want a partner that's forthcoming with their emotions? Yes. Is that my personal standard in a relationship? Yes. But am I going to expect that from every man that I ever go on a date with? Absolutely not. And that's what's part of incremental trust building. All that word salad just means that I'm learning to approach vulnerability with a board game mentality. I make my move, then I let the other person make theirs. I don't dare make my move twice because that's not fair. It's not fair to me because I'm not allowing myself to build a healthy level of investment and attachment in this person and to this relationship. It's not fair to them because it's not allowing them the opportunity to rise to the occasion. In practice, that just means revealing something personal and then letting them return that gesture. Now, granted, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I don't feel comfortable showing all my cards, especially when someone hasn't earned it. It's brat summer, babe. And by brat summer, I mean having your boundaries and being as equally invested as the other person is in the relationship and being vulnerable, but at a certain point, and not revealing too much about yourself to the point where it could put you in danger, but offering up vulnerability as a donation or as an offering so that the other person can rise to the occasion of doing the same. Now, the second piece of advice I'm utilizing is this. Be the kind of person you'd want to be with. To those who have been told that their standards are, quote, too high, I personally would rather my standards be too high than to be with someone who could literally lower my quality of life, jeopardize the things I've built on my own in my lifetime, or shorten my lifespan. Studies show that most women who partner with men end up living shorter lifespans and having overall lower quality of life than women who remain unpartnered. And I don't think that that is just because they're partnering men. I think it's because they're partnering men who refuse to invest in their own mental and emotional health and how they show up in relationships. Because I don't think that a lot of men are trained to do that, and I don't think that they are expected to do that. And the less we expect them to do that, the less they feel obligated to do that. You see the cycling, you see the cycling, you see it? So what that means is, for me, whoever I end up with has to make my life better, longer, and more fulfilling for it to be worth it. You know, for some women that's negotiable, but it's not for me. And once I made that decision, I realized I'm going to be single for a long time. But I've learned to just not mind that. Now, does society make it easy for single people? No, not at all. Most things are for pairs. If you do a social outing, there's a +1. There's not a plus group. And the +1 is expected to be a partner or a spouse or something of that nature. There's a lot of ways legally. There's a lot of logistics in society that make it not easy for single people to just live life. But if I'm honest with myself, I'd rather this than be with a man who would embarrass me in public and or punish me for his own securities in private. And I hope the same for you. That being said, a lot of us, regardless of gender, have an image of our perfect person floating around in our heads. And I know a lot of people who, when using this talking point, would follow it up with you need to lower your standards, especially women. But I'm not going to say that. No. That's not what this is here. I'm actually going to say to keep your standards the way they are. If they're way up there, keep them up there. If you want someone who goes to the gym, good for you. But then you need to be going to the gym too. If you want someone who doesn't get jealous, it is within my humble neurodivergent Black woman opinion that you yourself need to deal with your own jealousy issues. I do think it's logical. I do think it just makes sense to aim to be the kind of person that you would want to be with, because at the end of the day, if you don't find your person, you've got yourself, and that's it. This thing smacked me in the face recently because it requires you to put action behind being the kind of person you want in your life, which forces you to level up, either for them or for yourself. You act differently, you walk differently, you talk differently, you accept different things and certain kinds of energy into your life. And as someone who used to let anyone in my life who I could get a hold of, it has been a palpable shift. And when you become the kind of person you want to have in your life, you realize that there's not much less you will accept than what you are willing to offer you. If that makes sense, like whatever the net positive is that you have in your life from just being with yourself, you're not going to accept any less than that. It's not going to make the cut because you're so happy with yourself. You're not going to put up with someone who calls you stupid or unlovable or makes you feel like you're those things and feeds into those narratives because you don't believe that about yourself. You wouldn't make yourself feel that way. And anyone who puts out other energy, you're going to be looking at sideways because that's not your standard anymore. Not only that, once you start leveling up to the kind of person who is your standard, you start to realize that people like that actually exist. People who are intelligent and funny and compassionate and attractive exist because you're that. Okay? Quit playing. You're all that. So you're going to find somebody who's all that too. Many of us like to put up, the onus on other people for being bad, and that's why nothing has worked out. Or we like to blame ourselves for being bad. But what if, now walk with me here, walk with me on this journey. Here we go, strolling. This might gag you because it left me effectively gagged. What if you are taking the necessary time it takes to be ready for the moment when you get what you want? Wouldn't it be a cold, hard shame to get what you want, but you're not ready for it? Flop of the century. Literal biggest flopperoni of the year. Next piece of advice to myself that I, typically give when I'm dating. Stop punishing people for things they didn't do. Lord help, this is the one. No, hi, I'm Shemaya, and I'm guilty of punishing myself for things other people did to me. Anybody else? Any takers? The reason why we do this is because, one, our brains like to find explanations instead of letting us feel messy, even though we do need to just feel messy sometimes. And two, some of us are used to being fixers. A fixer, the way I see it, is someone who sees everyone's actions as a reflection of them, and especially when it comes to someone who they think needs to be fixed. Yikes, 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 yikes. If something goes wrong in their life, they think it's because they did something wrong. A piano could fall from the sky and they'd say, that, probably my fault. I probably did that. Listen, I've absolutely been you. Once someone mistreated me and I thought it was my fault. And I remember having a conversation with a friend where I told them that I felt this way. And they flat out said, Shemaya, I hear you, but that's not logical, really. Yes, it happened to you, but it could have happened to anyone. You just happened to be there. And I thank that friend for saying that because I don't know if they knew what they were gifting me. Because it's a rebuttal against the notion that everyone who harms people does it on purpose as well. Sometimes we are literally collateral damage in someone else's clumsiness. And sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes that's all that is. Also, can we please stop distrusting everyone just because one person or even two people were clumsy? There are billions of people on the planet, many of them who you have yet to meet, and most of them are going to be ratchet. But some of them are pretty dope. I'm pretty dope. You're pretty dope. That's two. Last piece of advice for myself, again, because I don't give people advice, except when I'm coaching them about entrepreneurship. Shameless plug. I coach neurodivergent entrepreneurs. It's a new rollout that I'm really excited about. So go ahead and book a coaching with me below. But anywho, this is the last little nugget. And this one might hurt more than most. I will warn you, this one might hurt a little. You're going to need to risk something. I hate it. Garbage. Truly. It's so ghetto. Dating men is straight up embarrassing. Dating is embarrassing. Falling in love is so Google. It just feels very unbecoming. But it's the way it is. I'm sorry to break it to you. If you date, prepare to look silly. Prepare to look gushy-eyed, gross, annoying, cringy, everything you hate. Prepare to become that. I say this because you simply can't get to the other side without risking anything. You're not going to fall in love without the possibility of getting hurt. And you're definitely not going to form a stronger emotional connection to someone while you're in survival mode. I'm going to say that one more time. You can't form an intimate relationship with someone when you are afraid of them. And most of the things you're afraid of happening aren't actually going to happen. Most of the things we're afraid of haven't actually happened. It's mostly after the fact that they've happened. And then we're like, oh, it's going to happen again. And you know what? Maybe the first time it happened, you just needed to learn something. And now you have the tools to learn. But it's not supposed to scare you from relationships altogether. Because, baby, that's no way to live. That's no way to live. Okay? It's not. It's not. Take it from somebody who knows. Like, I have healed the most from relationships by relationships. People can teach you, people can grow you, people can heal you. And it's not something that you can get away from. I'm sorry. And the other thing about it is you do have to show those people how to love you and how to nurture you. There are certain standards you need to uphold in relationships that like allow you to live your best life and be your best self. But also, most people don't just show up in relationships knowing exactly what you need and when, because everyone's different. Everyone's different. So we just have to learn every time. We just have to learn a new language every time. That's just the way it is. As I wrap up, I hope that you can look back at what you've done, the relationships you've had or pursued, what you've risked, and be proud of yourself for being brave. Because ultimately, if you are pursuing a relationship, you are one of the bravest people on earth. Truly. All right, that's all I have left today. Don't forget to check out my coaching link below. Be blessed. Stay weird.